Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Zen's AI Corner, the place where we introduce AI terminology or technologies in plain language which you can understand. So today I want to talk about another terminology you often heard about, which is MCP. Right. So I believe everybody. Today I'm doing the whiteboarding J.io because today I'm not at the home, so therefore I have to do in the office. MCP, right? I know everybody knows, like a lot of people say when they talk about what MCP is, what people will say, MCP literally is like a model context protocol, right? So, but it doesn't really do anything oh yeah, so it's a model context protocol, but it's hard to understand what a model context protocol is, right? So today I'm going to let you know what it actually is. So everybody knows we have the AI, right? So AI basically is a very big concept, but the core of AI, the brain of AI is called the LLM. So AKA we call it large language model, right? Large language model is LLM. So large language module is just a module which you're able to calculate based on the input parameter is able to calculate the responses, to generate responses like a ChatGPT. But it's not able to call. It doesn't have a hand and it doesn't have a mouth. It has a mouth, I should say, but it doesn't have a hand, doesn't have foot, and so it is not able to call external services. For example, I have large language module, so you tell me, oh, okay, you can check my mailbox. What about you just check the mailbox for me, right? I don't want to do everything by my hand. So therefore, there is some other service in the world, for example, email service, right? And there is so for example, their print service, right? Or maybe let's say there is some services which is I'm able to get the weather service, which we can check the weather. So large language module is not going to call those services. Large language module is not going to call those services because it's only produce tokens in our terminology, in our words, where it's more makes sense for us, which is the text. And so the MCP basically is the bridge that bridging that connect large language module with those services, right? So today, if I create a MCP, let's say we call it, I call it a bridge between large language module and the print services, then these components or services will call print MCP, right? So same. So if today we got this one, which is like connecting between large language module and the email service, we maybe call the email MCP. So I hope this help you understanding what MCP is. MCP basically is a bridge, which is connecting between like a large language module and the services and the external services. Therefore, enable large language module to get those information for those services or send a payload or send a request to those services. But if this is not all about MCP. MCP is a bridge which is able to connect the large language module with those external services. But also it's kind of trying to standardize. It's kind of standardize how you're going to call those services. Right? Let's say there is services which are print service, as I said, like there's print services. Ooh, let me just draw this picture a bit prettier. Right, let's call those services. Oh no, kind of here. There, that looks better. That looks better. That looks way better. So instead of like developing components which is connecting with other services, normally what MCP does is trying to have MCP here, which is a service which is connecting between your large language module and those services. And apart from integration components, which is able to connect large language module and service, but also trying to standardize. So MCP trying to give you the standard way to call, like between large language module and those services. For example, just do like this would be better. For example, MCP will have a specification. You can find on the GitHub, which is talking about like how you're going to call MCP like service. For example, list of tools. For example, call tool. For example, things like that, blah, 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 blah. So MCP, like they have a specification which is saying, okay, give me the list of the tools which are available for large language module. In our case, we have the weather functions tool available, weather tool available, email tool available, print tool available. So if large language module, which is calling the MCP, says, oh, give me the list of tools available, this MCP is a service, will return the list, which is in the response back to large language module says, oh, the following are the tools available, which is weather, email, and the print. Then, okay, then large language module will therefore make another call to MCP, says, okay, this call is called a call tool, and the payload is I want to call email services with the function name blah, with parameter name blah, right? So like those names called list tools and the call tools, and along with other standard name for the parameter or for parameter or the schema, I should say, which is defined by MCP. Therefore, like if you familiar with web service in the past, we actually have a kind of similar service called UDDI, right? Which is able to discover the web service available with WSDL files over there, with endpoint available over there. So MCP basically is doing the similar things as UDDI, but in the AI large language module world. And apart from UDDI, I think UDDI is only for discovering the web service endpoint, but actually MCP is also not only for discovering, that is a list of tools, but also allow you to call the tools, because when the call tools, large language module just call tools with the tool name and the parameter, but the actual call happens between MCP, your MCP server, let's say, right? And towards those services, therefore come back with responses. And if you want curious about how a large language module is able to call MCP server, right? It depends on how you want to architecture your infrastructure or your services. And for me, the most important, most simple way is I will write a small program. Let me just fix this line here. So it won't be messed up in the future. So okay, so like very simple way, which is usually like we use some kind of the tools wrapper, right? Let's say this the field is not filled, right? So we usually have a wrapper. For example, you might want to use in Python or in Node.js, you have LangChain, right? It's a library. It's a Node.js library, or like you are able to, and basically this library is able to call, right? It doesn't work like that way. So basically this is like it's a library, and then which wrap the, maybe this one will be easier. And then you have your Python code, or let's say your application code, right? Could be Python or Node.js or any language you want to use, right? So basically what happens is like doing this, right? You call your application, which you're calling, let me just fix that quickly. It's a library, and that library will respond call large language module. This is how it works, right? Normally, and then when you actually call LangChain, you should give prompt. If you don't know what a prompt is, you can go to my last video and understand what a prompt is. And when you talk about a prompt, and you send a prompt like this, right? You say there are a couple of ways. LangChain library usually, like when you invoke the large language module, you can specify the format. For example, I want to specify the format which is JSON. So basically, when you when you call the large language module by LangChain, you are able to like telling large language module what to do, right? And then your code therefore is starting able to like consume the response which come back from a large language module which is in JSON format, and then your code start actually making that call to MCP server. If you see what I mean, right? So this whole things here is your AI solution, right? Is an AI solution, or in the modern, in the other way, we can say it is your agent, right? Or I say AI agent. So that's how it works. Large language module itself is not able to call MCP server. Who is calling MCP server is your application, or maybe there is existing libraries out there which allow you to make that call. So, but how it works is very simple. Just basically like when your code call the large language module and you specify the large language module reply should be in JSON format. If the library which supports, for example, LangChain already supports like the invocation, like a type which is you want a JSON response, but or if it doesn't, if you don't use the LangChain library or some library doesn't have this parameter able to specify, what you can do is in the prompt which you send into large language module, it says you must respond in JSON format, and for example, you can say, okay, please answer the following question in JSON format only. For example, and also you give like a few short example. For example, like the JSON format will be the question, and you say value, action, value, right? Like basically the things under the hood is those tools to actually convert your prompt into a prompt like this, right? Right? Therefore, it comes back with JSON response. And of course, if those tools are already providing those like customization able to support the JSON, under the hood, it's actually doing this. But if it doesn't, you can construct your JSON, construct your prompt like what I said here, and you get a JSON response, and you pass the LLM response, because by giving this prompt or you specify the response should be in JSON format, the large language module response tags will be in JSON format. And then if you're using JavaScript, Node.js, you will say, okay, let payload equals JSON dot like a pass like a LLM response text, right? Like that. Then you get that payload, and you pass the payload because it's a JSON. Then you know, okay, what do you want to do, and you can start calling the MCP, right? You can start calling MCP regarding to find out what the service is available, and therefore you are able to do those things. So long story in short, MCP is a bridge which connect your large language module with external services, but also it standardizes the parameter, the name, right? You like in your payload, in the schema, it standardizes the schema for you to call. Therefore, your MCP solution, which is here, can be used by other services as well. Because if you don't use this, you can totally remove this, right? And then your code can just call those services straight away. No problem. You can do that. But by doing that, there is no reusability, right? Those services are tightly coupled with your code, with your agent. But with MCP over there, so your solution here can be used by other services because there is discovery function for list tools. Everybody is standardized, so they will know how many functions are there and how to call them, what the parameter required. Just like a UDDI, as I mentioned back in web service world. And you can then start calling those services by sending call to function, right? And to specify which function you want to call. So that's how MCP works. Hope this video give you an understanding about how MCP works And yeah, let me know if you have any more questions, and I will see you next video. Happy AI programming. Talk to you later. Bye.